Little Nightmares. It's an indie horror game that just came out that blends the atmosphere and tension of the horror genre with 3D platforming. Finally, worlds collide. I think you guys all know that my two fields of expertise are platformer games and indie horror games, and while Little Nightmares is not made in RPG Maker, I still feel there's enough common ground here to make this game perfect to review on this channel. Little Nightmares is a very refreshing take on the indie horror game. I mean, instead of being a walking simulator with too much reading material and a couple of jump scares, Little Nightmares gives the horror genre a platforming spin. Now, puzzle platformers with creepy atmospheres are nothing new. I mean, you can take a look at Limbo or Inside, but this is the first really noteworthy horror puzzle platformer that's actually 3D instead of 2D. You play as a little girl in a yellow raincoat who wakes up in the hull of a ship, so I guess your goal is just to get out of the ship. You'll find yourself climbing objects, jumping. The R2 button is a grab button, so it's actually kind of comparable to Little Big Planet slightly, which is interesting because this game was actually developed by people who helped work on the Little Big Planet games. Now, the platforming and climbing is strangely enough comparable to the Uncharted series. You'll be Nathan Draking around your gigantic environment time and time again. You're so small in this game, or maybe everything else is really big? I don't know. I'm a baby, dude. I feel like Tommy Pickles in this game. There's a lot of simple puzzle solving, often involving the physics engine, you know, pushing things, pulling things, picking things up and throwing them. It's not super complicated, but it's effective nonetheless. Now, it won't be long before you start running into the game's monsters. Rather than being a game with a lot of monsters, it's one of those games that just picks one, and you'll see them again and again throughout the stage. You'll have your first run-in with this Lanky Kong looking ass here, and oh my god, he's so creepy, dude. For real though, the monster design in this game is utterly fantastic, and I feel they were modeled and designed in such a way that's easily complemented by Unreal 4's lighting engine. Like, you ever play Evil Within? I got a very similar vibe from that game. A lot of washed out golden browns, muddy, but in a really good way. A lot of dirty cloth textures on the characters. I think it's really cool that in contrast with the game's dark atmosphere, you play as a character in a bright yellow jacket, and it wasn't until the game's very first zoom out that really made it click with me. No matter what, it's always easy to identify where your character is. At any given moment, it's never difficult to see where on screen you are, which is something that is likely to happen in such a dark game. And this game's atmosphere is as lovely as it is dark. Beautiful lighting and fog effects make the game very pleasing to the eye. But easily one of the strongest aspects of the game is the sound design. I mean, remember when Silent Hill used the radio to let you know when enemies were nearby to raise tension? Little Nightmares does a similar thing with the game's score. These big chef dudes, when they're nearby, this trombone track plays. It's kind of like a goofy big guy like bum 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 sort of tune. As one gets nearer and nearer, it'll play louder and faster. The speed and the volume of the music will convey just how close one of these chef dudes is to you. Never in my life have I been put so on edge by a trombone. This room where you need to get the key while one of them is sleeping, he wakes up and leaves the room, but you still hear that trombone while he's out of the room as you try to sneak out. Even when he's out of sight, you're just so hesitant to leave this room because you hear it. It's like, is he coming by? Is he getting... The game uses its sound design to illustrate when someone catches sight of you, similar to Metal Gear Solid's. But this game uses a much more organic kind of sound, a quickening heartbeat. Bumpa 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 bumpa. When you hear that, it's the "oh no, I think he sees me" sound. And when they actually do see you, now you know it's time to run. The trombone continues doing its job even as he gives chase. During moments like these, you'll even feel the character's heartbeat through the controller's rumble, which I thought was really cool. It's just another thing that helps set this game's fantastic mood. Now, with enemies chasing after you, there's going to be a great deal of stealth involved, and stealth in horror games is something I've always found to be very hit and miss for me. I never really liked games like Outlast because I get so annoyed by being chased, you know, rather than actually freaked out or scared. I'm like, okay, run into this locker, he's gonna see, oh, okay, he's on me, I don't know, I just get really pissed off and annoyed by it rather than being scared, and I think a big part of that is the limited visibility you get with a first-person camera. Little Nightmares is a lot closer to something like Clock Tower or Haunting Ground, though definitely streamlined a lot more. You still get that panic sensation from being chased briefly, but once you've broken the line of sight and have found a good hiding spot, it doesn't take long before the enemies will resume their normal duties. It's all the fun of a terrifying game of hide and seek, like, just without the tedious waiting that comes with the hiding. It's one of the better balances I've experienced in a game like this. Never did I get impatient with it, and that's something I find very few indie horror games with a focus on hiding are bold enough to achieve. Though I do find a lot of scenarios are way too obvious and easy. I mean, you know the monster's gonna come into the room and there's only one hiding spot, so you go there, you know you're gonna be safe. They should have made multiple hiding spots with varying probability of detection, or made the hiding spots harder to spot and uncover. And as a lot of you guys probably know, I never really cared much for horror games with a large amount of reading material. I mean, I find it's very trendy to try and tell an entire story in passing through just these notes and such, and I do see the appeal in that. We have this scenario where something already unfolded and we're finding out what happened, but I mean, I think something like that can definitely improve a story, but relying entirely on it, it's just like, I don't want to read all this. Little Nightmares, on the other hand, actually has no reading material. It doesn't even have any spoken dialogue. There's no words in this game whatsoever. It takes the inside route of telling a story entirely through action and visuals. What that story is, though, I don't really know. I mean, I beat this game twice, and I'm sure there's a story here you can piece together, but I'm not really getting the big picture. Maybe I'm just stupid. I mean, there's definitely a theme here. There's a theme of hunger. As you go through, your character will get hungry, and you'll resort to more and more desperate situations to satisfy your hunger, and that definitely has something to do with all the big, scary, hungry people you see in the final part of the game. I mean, there were a lot of moments that made me raise one eyebrow and say, oh, that's so cool, but I mean, in the end, I don't really know what's going on here. Maybe I should just watch one of those Little Nightmares story explained videos or something. I mean, there's definitely something here, but it's definitely nowhere near as well thought out or poetic as something like Inside, but nonetheless, it is a very interesting ride. Man, Little Nightmares is such a good game, dude. Like, it's such a good blend of platforming, stealth, and puzzle solving. Fantastic character design and atmosphere. The only thing I think that might turn people a little bit off from it is definitely the game's short length. Little Nightmares is a great game, but it's a very short game. My first blind playthrough took me only 2 hours and 40 minutes. It's $20 US and $25 Canadian, and to some, I can see that being a tad steep for such a short game. I personally love short games. I mean, as an adult with a full-time job on top of doing Nitro Rad, length isn't as much as an issue for me because I don't have much free time, and I love to play through something short every now and then, but I know a lot of you guys are gonna try and get more bang for your buck. There is great replay value, though. I mean, I immediately gave the game a second run, trying to find more of the collectibles, but even still, if you're more on the stingy side, definitely check for when this game goes on sale. It's such a good game, dude. I love it so much. I mean, like, I've never seen an indie game so far up my alley before. I mean, I guess that's kind of because I've got two alleys, really. I've got the platformer alley, and I've got the horror game alley, and for once, a game walks down both.